The corridor lights dimmed one by one as the station shifted into emergency power. The sound was soft, almost polite, like the station was trying not to worry anyone. Commander Elias Wren stood in front of the containment door and watched the warning symbols scroll across the glass panel. They pulsed slowly, as if breathing. Behind him, Dr. Mara Voss said nothing. Elias placed his hand on the manual control. It was cold, colder than it should have been, and he wondered how long the temperature system had been failing. The answer did not matter anymore. What mattered was timing. If he waited too long, the station would seal the entire sector, and the thing inside would be lost, or worse, destabilized. He took a slow breath and pressed the control. The door began to slide closed. The sound filled the corridor, deep and final. Elias did not turn around. He knew if he looked at Mara, he might hesitate, and hesitation would ruin everything. The gap between the doors narrowed, frame by frame, until only a thin line of light remained. Mara stood perfectly still. She could have shouted his name. She could have ordered him back. She had the authority to override the seal for another 10 seconds. Her console was open, glowing softly in her hands. She did none of those things. The door closed completely, and the lock engaged with a quiet click. On the other side of the glass, Elias was alone. Inside the containment sector, the air felt heavier, not in pressure but in presence. The room was wide and circular, built around a central structure that no one fully understood. The alien construct hovered a meter above the floor, its surface shifting slowly, like liquid metal remembering old shapes. It did not glow. It did not move toward him. It simply existed. Elias resisted the urge to speak immediately. He had learned long ago that silence could be more useful than words. Instead, he removed his helmet and placed it gently on the floor. The act was deliberate. The station records would show it later, but more importantly, the construct would see it. A sign of trust, he hoped. Outside the door, Mara finally let herself breathe. Her hands were shaking now, and she hated that. She locked her fingers together and forced her posture straight. The corridor was filling with voices, station officers, alien observers, automated alerts, but all of it felt distant, like noise from another life. Containment sector sealed, the station announced. Stability holding at 78%. 78 was better than expected. That meant Elias was still alive. Mara turned to the nearest observer, a tall figure wrapped in layered fabric and shimmering fields. Its species had no visible face, only shifting colors where eyes might be. "You should reopen the door," the observer said calmly. "Your human has no protection." "He has what he needs," Mara replied. "You are assuming much." "No," she said. "I'm trusting someone." Inside the sector, Elias took a few careful steps forward. The floor responded to his weight with a faint vibration, like the room was aware of him. He stopped at what he estimated was a safe distance and sat down cross-legged on the floor. The construct changed. Not dramatically. It did not flare or pulse or release energy. Instead, one section of its surface slowed, forming a smoother curve, almost symmetrical. Elias noticed immediately. "Okay," he said softly. His voice echoed more than it should have. "You see me." The construct remained silent. Elias began tapping his fingers against his knee, slow and steady. A rhythm. Something human, something simple. He did not know why he chose it, only that it felt right. The station logs would later show that the construct's internal fluctuations began to stabilize at that exact moment. Outside, alarms softened. Red lights faded to amber. Mara's console updated. Stability, 82%. She stared at the number, then at the sealed door. "You're doing something," she whispered, though Elias could not hear her. The alien observers watched the data with growing confusion. The construct was not responding to containment fields or energy modulation. It was responding to proximity, to behavior. "That is not a recognized method," one observer said. Mara did not look at them. Humans aren't recognized methods. Inside the sector, Elias changed the rhythm slightly. The construct responded again, a faint shift that mirrored the timing. It was not copying exactly, but it was trying. Learning. Elias felt a strange calm settle over him. Fear was still there, sitting quietly in his chest, but it was no longer in control. He thought of Earth, of open skies and wind and doors that did not lock behind you. He wondered if he would see them again. He did not regret closing the door. Time passed strangely in the containment sector. Elias had no clear sense of minutes or hours. The lights remained steady, the air constant. He spoke occasionally, not to explain but to exist. Simple words, stories without details, descriptions of rain, of music, of sitting across from someone without knowing what to say. The construct listened. Outside, Mara refused to leave her post. When Station Command ordered her to rest, she ignored them. When an alien delegate questioned her ethics, she answered without raising her voice. "He chose to stay," she said, "and I chose not to stop him." "Choice does not equal correctness," the delegate replied. "Sometimes it does," Mara said, "just not on your charts." The data continued to improve. Stability reached 90%, then 93%. The station's systems began rerouting power back to civilian sectors. Lives that would have been lost were quietly saved, 1 percentage point at a time. No one cheered. They all watched the door. Inside, Elias finally stood. His legs felt stiff, but his mind was clear. The construct shifted again, forming a shape that was almost but not quite like a doorway. Elias laughed softly. "That figures," he said. "Everything important comes down to doors." He stepped closer. The construct did not resist. It did not advance. It waited. Outside, Mara's console flashed. A new signal, faint but undeniable. First contact protocol alert. Her breath caught. The observers leaned in, their colors brightening in what might have been surprise. The station translated the signal automatically, though the words were incomplete, more concept than language. Presence acknowledged. Mara pressed her hand against the glass. "Elias," she whispered, "you did it." Inside the sector, Elias felt something shift, not around him but through him. Like standing in a place where history was deciding what came next. He thought of the door again, how slowly it had closed, how no one had stopped it. He realized then that this was not an ending. It was an invitation. And somewhere beyond the sealed glass, Mara stood her ground, trusting that the man who closed the door had done so for a reason. The station drifted quietly through space, holding its breath, as humanity took one small, irreversible step forward. The containment sector did not feel the same anymore. Elias could not explain how he knew, but the air itself seemed less tense, like a room after a storm had passed. The alien construct hovered in front of him, still silent, still strange, yet no longer distant. It reacted now, not just to movement, but to intention. When Elias took a step forward, it adjusted. When he stopped, it waited. He spoke again, not because he expected an answer, but because speaking felt right. "My name is Elias," he said calmly. "I don't know what you are. I don't know what you want, but I'm here." The construct shifted. Thin lines appeared across its surface, forming patterns that faded and returned. They were not symbols, not writing, but they felt deliberate. Elias watched closely, his heart steady, his body still. Outside the door, Mara sat on the floor with her back against the wall. She had been standing for too long, and no one dared to move her. The station command staff spoke in low voices behind her, while alien observers continued to study the data streams. Stability was holding at 94%. "That should not be possible," one observer said. "The construct has rejected all prior contact." Mara did not look up. "Maybe it wasn't rejecting contact," she said. "Maybe it was rejecting fear." No one answered that. Inside, Elias slowly raised his hand, palm open. It was a basic human gesture, one used across cultures and history. He held it there, feeling slightly foolish, slightly hopeful. The construct responded by extending part of itself, reshaping its surface until it mirrored the shape, not perfectly but close enough to be unmistakable. Elias let out a quiet breath. "You're learning," he said. The station's internal systems registered a new change. Energy readings inside the containment sector began to fluctuate in a controlled pattern almost like a pulse. The construct was not destabilizing. It was synchronizing. Mara's console chimed softly. Adaptive response confirmed. Her eyes widened. She stood slowly and stepped closer to the glass. "Elias," she whispered again, knowing he could not hear her. "What are you becoming part of?" Time continued to behave strangely inside the sector. Elias felt hunger only faintly, thirst barely at all. The construct seemed to be influencing the environment, maintaining him without effort or explanation. It did not feel invasive. It felt careful. He sat again and began to tell a story. It was not an important story. It was about a small town near the ocean, about a door that stuck in the summer and whistled in the wind. He described the sound, the smell of salt, the way light looked in the evening. He spoke slowly, clearly, letting each word exist on its own. The construct listened. With each sentence, the patterns on its surface grew more complex. They did not copy the sounds, but they followed the rhythm, the emotional rise and fall. Elias realized then that it was not processing language the way humans did. It was processing meaning through presence. Outside, one of the alien delegates turned toward Mara. "Your species communicates inefficiently," it said. "Why does this work?" Mara finally stood. "Because we don't always communicate to be efficient," she said. "Sometimes we do it to be understood." The delegate was silent. The station received another signal from the containment sector. This one was stronger, clearer. The translation system struggled but managed to form a partial interpretation. Witnessing. Mara felt her throat tighten. "It's watching," she said. "No," an observer corrected softly. "It is witnessing." Inside, Elias felt a sudden weight settle into the room, not physical but emotional. The construct's surface dimmed slightly, its movements slower, more focused. Elias sensed curiosity, yes, but also something else: evaluation. He stood again, his legs steady despite the time spent sitting. "I don't know what you're looking for," he said honestly, "but I didn't come here to win anything. I came so others wouldn't get hurt." The construct reacted strongly to that. Its form expanded briefly, then contracted, as if considering multiple possibilities at once. The energy pulse deepened, resonating through the floor. Outside, alarms flickered, then stabilized. Power levels across the station normalized further. Life support systems returned to full capacity. "You're fixing us," Mara said softly, awe in her voice. Inside the sector, Elias suddenly felt tired. Not weak, but heavy, like after a long day where every important decision had already been made. He sat once more, resting his hands on his knees. The construct reshaped itself again, forming a structure that looked increasingly intentional. Not a doorway this time, but something closer to a boundary, a marker. Elias understood without being told. This was a test. Not of strength, not of intelligence, of willingness. He thought of Mara standing outside the door. He thought of how she had not stopped him, not because she did not care, but because she trusted him to choose. He thought of humanity scattered across systems, loud and flawed and brave in strange ways. He looked up at the construct. "If you're asking whether we'll step forward," he said quietly, "the answer is yes. We always do." Outside, the translation system updated again. This time the message was clearer, the words sharper. Observation complete. Continuation pending. Mara pressed both hands to the glass. "Continuation of what?" she whispered. Inside, Elias felt the environment shift once more. The construct did not move closer. Instead, the space around him felt larger, like the room had expanded without changing shape. The construct was no longer just reacting. It was preparing. Elias took a deep breath and remained exactly where he was. He did not reach for the door. He did not call out. He stayed. Beyond the containment sector, the station drifted through space, no longer on the edge of disaster but on the edge of something new. No alarms sounded. No celebrations began. Everyone waited, because whatever happened next would not belong to one man alone. It would belong to humanity. The change did not happen all at once. It arrived slowly, like dawn spreading across a dark sky. Elias felt it first in his chest, a steady warmth that was not heat but awareness. The containment sector no longer felt like a closed room. It felt like a place that had accepted him. The construct hovered quietly, its surface smoother than before. The shifting patterns were calmer now, more organized. They no longer flickered at random. They flowed with purpose, like thoughts forming and reforming. Elias stood and stretched his arms carefully. His body felt strange but strong, supported by something he could not see. He realized he had not felt hunger or thirst for a long time. The construct was sustaining him, not as a prisoner, but as a participant. He took a step forward. The construct responded by adjusting the space between them, not retreating, not advancing, matching him. "You're still watching," Elias said softly, "but now you're listening differently." The construct pulsed once, a deep, steady rhythm that echoed faintly through the floor. Outside the containment door, the station was quieter than it had been in days. Systems were stable. Power flowed normally. Emergency crews had returned to their duties. Yet no one truly relaxed. Mara stood with station command and the alien observers, all of them focused on the data streaming from the containment sector. The readings were unlike anything they had seen before. Energy curves overlapped in ways that broke known models. The construct was no longer classified as unstable, it was classified as active. "This goes beyond first contact," one observer said. "This resembles an evaluation structure." Mara nodded slowly. "That's what I was afraid of." "Afraid?" another asked. "Yes," she said. "Because evaluations have outcomes." Inside, Elias felt the environment shift again. The air grew clearer, sharper. Sounds carried farther. His own breathing felt louder, more present. The construct reshaped itself, forming multiple layered surfaces, each one reflecting a slightly different angle of him. He realized then that it was not just observing him. It was observing his reactions to being observed. Elias smiled faintly. "You really want to know who we are?" The construct did not answer, but a new pattern emerged. Images formed briefly along its surface. Not clear pictures, but impressions. Elias saw shapes that suggested cities, stars, and beings that were not human. Some stood alone. Some stood together. Some faded quickly, like memories that had not lasted. Elias understood enough to feel a quiet sadness. "You've seen others," he said, "and not all of them stayed." The construct slowed, its pulse deepening. The images faded. Outside, the translation system struggled again, then stabilized. A new concept appeared on Mara's console, patterns reviewed, outcomes recorded. Her hands tightened into fists. "It's judging," she said. "Not just Elias, all of us." Inside, Elias took a slow breath. He lowered himself to the floor again, choosing to sit rather than stand. It was a small decision, but a meaningful one. He was not trying to dominate the space. He was choosing to share it. The construct reacted immediately. One of its layers dissolved, leaving a simpler form. The distance between them shortened slightly. Elias felt a wave of pressure pass through him. Not pain, not fear. It was like standing in deep water while a current tested your balance. He stayed still, grounding himself with steady breaths. Memories rose in his mind, uninvited. Moments of failure, moments of doubt, times he had chosen wrong. He did not push them away. "If you're looking for perfection," he said quietly, "you won't find it here." The construct's pulse changed again, faster now, more focused. Outside, alarms flickered briefly before fading. Data streams spiked, then leveled. "It's pulling something from him," an observer said. Mara shook her head. "No, it's letting him show it." Inside, Elias felt the pressure ease. The memories remained, but they no longer felt heavy. They felt acknowledged. He stood again, meeting the construct at eye level even though it had no eyes. "We're not perfect," he said, "but we keep going. We learn. We take responsibility when we can. And when we can't, we still show up." The construct expanded suddenly, filling more of the room. Elias did not step back. His heart raced, but his feet stayed planted. The station registered a surge of energy, clean and stable. The translation system produced a clearer message than ever before. Criteria identified, threshold approaching. Mara's breath caught. "Elias," she whispered, "be careful." Inside the sector, Elias felt something open. Not a door this time, but a path. The space behind the construct shimmered faintly like a reflection on still water. He understood instinctively that this was not meant for him to cross. Not yet. The construct shifted, forming a shape that echoed Elias' posture, upright, balanced, equal. Elias felt a strange emotion rise in his chest, pride mixed with humility. "You're not asking me to leave," he said. "You're asking if we're ready." The construct pulsed once. Outside, the observers exchanged uneasy signals. "If this is an ancient evaluation system," one said, "then passing does not guarantee safety, it guarantees attention." Mara did not look away from the door. "We already have attention," she said. "This just decides what kind." Inside, Elias felt the room settle. The construct's movement slowed, becoming deliberate. The shimmering path faded, replaced by a steady glow. Elias knew then that the test was not over. This was only the middle. He sat down again, choosing patience over action. The construct responded by lowering itself slightly, mirroring his choice. Outside, the station logs marked a significant shift. Evaluation Phase 2 initiated. Mara closed her eyes for a brief moment, then opened them, steady and focused. "Hold on," she whispered. "Both of you." Inside the containment sector, Elias remained where he was, calm in the presence of something far older and larger than himself. He had closed the door to protect others. Now he was standing in the space beyond that choice, carrying humanity with him, not as a banner, not as a weapon, but as a truth. And the construct was still watching. The containment sector felt different again, as if it had taken a breath and decided to hold it. The soft hum that had become familiar to Elias faded into near silence. The construct hovered lower now, closer to the floor, its surface steady and calm. It no longer shifted without reason. Every movement felt chosen. Elias stood quietly, his hands relaxed at his sides. He had learned that stillness mattered here. The construct was not impressed by motion or force. It responded to intent, to honesty that did not try to hide behind words. Outside the sealed door, Mara noticed the silence before the systems did. The data streams flattened into clean, smooth lines. No spikes, no warnings. "This is worse," one of the station officers murmured. Mara shook her head slowly. "No," she said, "this is deeper." The alien observers gathered closer, their colors dimmer, their movements restrained. They had seen many technologies, many tests, many species rise and fail. But this was unfamiliar. This was not conquest or defense. This was choice. Inside, Elias felt a gentle pressure in his chest, like a question waiting to be answered. The construct pulsed once, and the space around them shifted. The walls of the sector seemed farther away, not moving, but less important. The focus narrowed until only Elias and the construct felt real. A sensation passed through Elias, not as words, but as understanding. If you stay, change follows. If you leave, safety returns. Elias closed his eyes for a moment. He thought of Mara outside the door, standing firm while others questioned her. He thought of the station crew, the civilians, the species watching from afar. He thought of humanity's long history of stepping into the unknown without guarantees. When he opened his eyes, he spoke softly. "You're asking for more than one moment." The construct responded by reshaping itself into two distinct forms, connected by a thin bridge of light. One remained steady and contained. The other shimmered, unstable but powerful. Elias understood. One path led to release, to normalcy, to returning to the station as he was. The other meant staying longer, becoming part of the stabilization permanently, anchoring the construct so it would never threaten the station or anyone else again. Outside, Mara's console flashed red for the first time in hours. Permanent integration scenario detected. Her heart pounded. "No," she whispered, "that's not what we agreed to." The observers reacted immediately. "This is unacceptable," one said. "Your human cannot be sacrificed to an unknown system." Mara turned on them sharply. "He is not a sacrifice," she said. "And this is his choice." "But you can stop it," another insisted. "You have the override." Mara looked at the panel in her hand. One command, one touch. She could open the door, pull Elias back, end the evaluation. Her fingers hovered. Inside, Elias felt the weight of the decision settle fully. This was not bravery in a dramatic moment. This was commitment, quiet, long-lasting. He spoke again, not to persuade, not to perform. "If I stay," he said, "what happens to me?" The construct pulsed slowly. Images formed, clearer than before. Elias saw himself standing in the sector, unchanged in body but altered in presence. He saw years passing, the station growing older, humanity expanding outward. He saw himself still there, aware, connected, but no longer fully separate. Not erased, not trapped, but transformed. Elias swallowed. "And if I leave," the images shifted. He saw the station safe, yes, but the construct sealed, dormant, waiting for another moment, another species, another test. Waiting always carried risk. Outside, Mara's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "Elias," she whispered, though she knew he could not hear her, "you've done enough." Inside, Elias thought of a door closing slowly, of how no one had stopped him, of trust given without conditions. He stepped forward, not toward the exit, toward the construct. The shimmering form steadied. The unstable light calmed as Elias reached the space between the two shapes. He did not touch the construct. He simply stood close enough to matter. "I'll stay," he said quietly. "Not forever, not as a prisoner, but as a bridge, until you learn us better." The construct reacted instantly. The two forms merged into one, brighter and more stable than before. A deep resonance filled the sector, passing through Elias without pain, without force. Outside, alarms blared briefly, then cut off. Permanent stabilization achieved. Mara stared at the words in disbelief. "No," she said. "That's not." Her console updated again. Human presence acknowledged. Consent verified. The observers fell silent. Mara sank to her knees. Inside, Elias felt the change settle into him. It was subtle but undeniable. He was still himself. His thoughts were his own. But there was now an awareness beyond his body, a sense of the station systems, the flow of energy, the calm of the construct. He was not controlling it, he was accompanying it. The construct lowered itself fully to the floor for the first time since activation. The sector lights softened, shifting to a warm, steady glow. Elias exhaled slowly. "Okay," he said. "Let's do this properly." Outside, the sealed door remained closed. Mara wiped her face and stood. Her voice was steady when she spoke. "He chose," she said to the room, "and we respect that." One observer inclined its form slightly. "Your species continues to surprise us." Mara did not look away from the door. "We surprise ourselves too." Minutes passed, then hours. The station stabilized completely. Civilian areas reopened. Ships resumed docking. Life continued. But the containment sector remained sealed. Inside, Elias adjusted to the new balance. He could move, speak, think. But he was also aware of the construct's processes, its ancient patience, its careful observation of humanity through him. He was not alone. Outside, Mara stayed. She did not leave her post. She monitored every reading, every subtle change. When the station command suggested rotating her out, she refused. "I'm where I need to be," she said. The override panel remained untouched. because some doors, once closed with purpose, should only be opened when both sides are ready. And Elias Wren, standing quietly within the containment sector, had become more than a man behind a door. He had become proof that humanity did not pass tests by force or fear, but by trust, choice, and the courage to stay when walking away would be easier. The door remained closed, and she still did not stop him. The first sign that things had truly changed was not an alarm, a signal, or a message from the construct. It was the way the station felt calmer, like a living thing that had finally stopped bracing for impact. Systems ran smoothly without correction. Power flowed evenly. Even the low background hum that all stations carried softened, almost like a quiet breath released after a long wait. Inside the containment sector, Elias stood near the center of the room. The construct no longer hovered above him as something separate. It existed with him, around him, aware of him in a way that felt natural now. He could feel its balance, its patience, its ancient attention. It did not speak in words, but understanding moved between them easily. He was still human, that mattered. Elias tested himself carefully. He walked, stretched, spoke aloud. His voice sounded the same to his own ears. His thoughts were his own. He could remember his childhood, his training, the people he cared about. Nothing had been taken from him. Something had been added. Outside the sealed door, Mara noticed the change as clearly as Elias did, even without seeing him. Her console showed a new status that had never existed before. Stable coexistence confirmed. She read the words again and again, as if they might change. "They won't," one of the observers said quietly. "The system has finalized its evaluation." Mara did not look at them. "What does that mean?" "It means your species has been classified," the observer replied. "Not as a threat, not as a resource, but as a constant." Mara swallowed, and Elias, the observer paused. "He is considered a representative, not an authority, in presence." Mara closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, they were steady. "Then I need to speak to him." Inside, Elias felt the request before the door moved. The construct adjusted the environment subtly, allowing sound to pass through the barrier without breaking the seal. It was careful, precise. "Elias," Mara's voice said, soft and clear. He turned toward the door instinctively. "I'm here." Her breath caught when she heard him. Are you okay?" He smiled, even though she could not see it. "Yes, different, but okay." Silence stretched between them, full of things neither knew how to say. "I should have stopped you," Mara said finally. "No," Elias replied gently. "You did exactly what you were supposed to do." Outside, tears slid down her face freely now. "I trusted you." "And you were right too," he said. The construct pulsed once, a slow, approving rhythm. In the days that followed, the galaxy noticed. Signals spread outward from the station, not as broadcasts but as confirmations. Ancient networks activated. Observers who had waited centuries for change took note. Humanity's status among the stars shifted quietly but permanently. There were no celebrations. There was respect. Ships began to arrive, not in fleets, not in force, but one by one. Diplomatic vessels, research envoys. Species that had once kept their distance now requested dialogue. Always the requests came with the same question: is the human still there? And the answer was always yes. Inside the containment sector, Elias learned what it meant to be a bridge. He did not command the construct. He did not speak for it. He simply existed with it, allowing others to understand its nature through his presence. He answered questions when he could. When he could not, he said so honestly. "I don't control it," he would explain. "I listen. That's different." The construct continued to observe, but its focus widened. Through Elias, it experienced humanity not as a single moment of courage, but as a pattern over time. Curiosity, mistakes, growth, care. Mara visited the door every day. Sometimes she spoke to Elias. Sometimes she simply sat nearby, working quietly, sharing the space. The door remained closed, but it no longer felt like a barrier. One day, without warning, the construct shifted again. Elias felt it immediately. Not urgency, readiness. The sealed door unlocked with a soft sound. Outside, alarms did not sound. Systems did not protest. The station accepted the change as if it had been waiting for it. Mara stood slowly, her heart pounding. Elias, I know, he said calmly. I feel it too. The door opened halfway and stopped. Elias stepped forward until he stood just inside the threshold. Light from the corridor touched his face for the first time in a long while. He looked the same, older perhaps in his eyes, but still himself. Mara took a step toward him, then stopped. Can you come out? Yes, he said, but not forever. She nodded, understanding more than the words explained. Elias crossed the threshold and stood in the corridor. The door remained open behind him. The construct did not pull him back. It did not resist. It trusted him. The observers watched in silence as Elias and Mara faced each other at last. No dramatic reunion followed. No rush, no collapse. They simply stood close, grounding each other in the reality of shared space. You stayed, Mara said. So did you, Elias replied. The construct pulsed again, slower this time, satisfied. The door did not close. From that day forward, the containment sector was no longer containment. It became a meeting place, a point of balance, a reminder written quietly into galactic records. When the ancient systems evaluated humanity, they did not record weapons, fleets, or expansion speed. They recorded one moment, a door closing slowly, a human choosing to stay, another human choosing not to stop him, and they marked the verdict clearly. Humanity does not advance by force. Humanity advances by trust. Elias returned to the sector when needed. He walked the station when he could. He was no longer bound, but he was always connected. Mara continued her work, no longer just as a scientist, but as a witness to something rare. The galaxy adjusted. And somewhere deep within an ancient construct, a new understanding settled into place. Some species pass tests by winning. Humans pass them by staying. The door remained open, and this time no one needed to close it.